Imagine this. You just spilled coffee on yourself in front of someone you really wanted to impress.
Does your inner critic immediately jump in to dominate your inner monologue? Ugh, why did I just do that?
Do you find yourself reliving the moment of embarrassment over and over? Do you feel regret or maybe easily getting into a shame spiral?
Do you struggle with forgiving yourself? Or maybe you avoid heavy emotions only to have them bubble up later, like yelling at the cashier at the grocery store, or maybe a little bit of road rage?
Yeah. And do you sometimes feel like you're the only person that feels this way? Are you nodding your head yes right now? Keep listening for a dose of relief.
Guess what? We all feel this way from time to time. It's totally normal. On this podcast, we reveal the messy bits about ourselves without judgment. It's a space where we can reflect, grow, and process our experiences.
And maybe we can even laugh about our actions, attitudes, and behaviors, where we can speak about our past and learn from it.
So, are you longing for a life with less worry and more joy? Let's get started. Hey there, welcome to a special episode of Let's Relieve Regret. My name is Victoria Muir-Bercia, and I'm one of your hosts, and I am joined by my amazing co-host,
Shadow Ball. I'm not feeling very sparkly today, though. We've been, if you have tuned in today, we are still going to be sharing some laughs and some relatable content between the two of us. But we're just both, I'm going to speak for Victoria here. We're both feeling not our super sparkly selves today.
And so we decided that that's okay because that's what we preach here. Why don't we do our check-in first?
Sure.
Well, how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10, Shadow?
I would still like a 5. Like, it's not like I'm feeling super terrible. I'm just not feeling like, yay, let's go frolic in the fields. Like, I'm just feeling kind of down. But I do have my steep tea here. Excited to just talk it out.
Yeah, you know what? I might go for 5 as well. I was gonna say 6, but 5 or 6. It is November 17th today. We don't usually say the dates when we're recording, but it's kind of an important part of our discussion because the time change happened last week, which means it's now darker and it's really affecting both of us. So we kind of wanted to talk a bit about that today. But we also wanted to talk about, this is our cause for applause before we get any deeper, everyone. It is our 1-year anniversary of the Let's Relieve Regret podcast. And we're so proud of ourselves. How do you feel? I'm proud.
I'm proud. I think it's so funny too, because like it took us so long to actually like publish that first episode. And we got lots of advice about like, okay, like as soon as you publish that first episode, you got to do it weekly. You got to be consistent. You got to do this. You got to do that. And I think that was a bit of the fear that kept us from actually launching. And then once we launched, like everything we were scared of didn't happen, and then things I hadn't even considered did happen. So it's almost cliche advice at this point, but if you are someone who's considering starting a podcast, just start, just do it, just get it out there, because your first few are going to be bad, and then you practice getting better at it. And it's so funny because like, how do you like this cognitive dissonance of like, yay, it's our anniversary, and like, ugh, I'm not quite feeling myself right now. So yeah, I guess I just feel this like some sort of way that is undefined.
I'm really proud of us. I think too, we spent a long time preparing, and I think we both learned through that process. Like I learned about myself, and I learned that one of my fears is not putting something perfect out there. And that was something I worked really hard on letting go through this process and in my businesses to put myself out there and know that what I'm putting out there at the beginning is good enough and it can only get better.
Right.
and that there will be changes made there. We will accept feedback. Things will happen, right? And
Hmm.
yeah, I love what you said too. If you're afraid of doing it, just do it, right? Or
Yeah.
just try. And I was talking about this a couple of weeks ago, I think, in one of my classes. We generally practice the things we're good at, but we should be practicing the things we're not good at. We don't need to practice the things
Mm.
we're good at, or we need to maintain the things we're good at. I think that can also kind of go to trying things
Right.
or putting things out there, especially for entrepreneurs, right? Trying a new product or a new service or a podcast and
Hmm.
learning while you're doing the process instead of pre-planning for absolutely every little thing so that you think you're putting something perfect out there the moment you do. But the thing is that you can't pre-plan for every little thing that's going to happen. So you might as well put it out there
Hmm.
and then be adaptable, be able to pivot as you move along.
Yeah, totally. I think even like the idea that we were going to do it every week because that's what the good podcasters do. They put out a new episode every week on the same day of the week and everything's all, lined up and bing, bang, boom, you're done. But like for us, we had to kind of like follow the flow of our energy. Like,
Whenever you start a project, like for me, I know when I start a project, sometimes my brain goes back to that place when I was working corporate.
mm,
And I need to remind myself constantly about the intentions of why I'm doing things because it
right,
can be so easy to get sucked into the busyness of things and forget the purpose or the intention. And I do think you and I have been really good at staying on the intention of this and
right.
staying on the purpose of this and also demonstrating self-care. So listeners out there, when we don't have a new episode for a month, it's because we are taking care of ourselves because we want to put
Hmm.
the best of ourselves out there for you, but we also want to put our honest selves out there for you. So
Yeah.
today, I know I'm feeling, and Shadow, you can say how you're feeling. I talk about this a lot, but I talked about it in the summer. I have seasonal affective disorder, which means that I can get depressed in the wintertime.
Hmm.
And it's a different type of depression because of the lack of sunlight. And I'm feeling it hard this year. So you may hear it in my voice. My energy is a bit lower right now. I'm a little bit more sleepy. I'm craving carbs, and then I'm punishing myself in my head for craving carbs and eating
Right.
chocolate. And
Yeah.
I'm fighting really hard right now as I transition into winter to get as
Hmm.
much sunlight as I can with the limited amount of sunlight that we have right now
Yeah.
and to fight those thoughts that happen naturally in my brain because that's how my brain works. And I wanted you to hear that out there.
Hmm.
I want our listeners to hear that out there, and I want you to hear that out there, that we're all just human, right? And there's ups and downs and ebbs and flows, and we move through it. We move through it.
Yeah.
And I said this last time we were recording, and Shadow, you really liked it. We don't lose time, we gain experience, right?
Right.
And I also said this in the last mini-sode about toxic positivity, is that
Hmm.
we learn about ourselves and about our connection with others in the down times
Right.
and in the low times. And so I think our intention with this podcast that you and I have been clear is about helping others feel human and to know that all the
Hmm.
feelings that you feel are normal.
Yeah.
And so here we are being real today
Hmm.
about how we're feeling.
Yeah. Real feels. Absolutely. Even like the things you just said, I want to respond to like five different things. And then like my brain's getting all scrambled of like, okay, well, which one's the most interesting thing to reply to? Or, and then I start tripping over my words of like, oh, well, wait, I want to talk about this. Oh, no, I want to talk about that. Oh, yeah. And now here we are. I still haven't added anything to what you just said because I can't choose the one thing I think would be the most interesting thing to talk about based on what you just shared.
So can we take the pressure off of what's the most interesting and just acknowledge that
Mm,
we are interesting as human beings?
sure. Sure.
That's really relatable. I think a lot of us do that in conversations, right? But
Hmm.
we put this pressure on ourselves to be super interesting in the podcast. We want to make sure we're not losing ourselves and that we're still our real selves because we want you to
Hmm.
hear our real selves and learn from us because that was always our intention
Yeah.
was to show real human beings, real feelings, and real ways to move through those feelings and emotions
Mm-hmm.
and connect, right? So
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what I just said you thought was interesting, what do you want to say? Because you're interesting, Shadow.
Yeah, it's I kind of want to bring it back to this idea that we you mentioned about practicing the things we're not good at.
Mhm.
I think for me, I've it's actually taken me a lot of grace to allow myself to practice the things I am good at. I think I always really wanted to be this well-rounded individual. Like I wanted to be good at all the things and trying new things all the time and not really sticking to one thing because like once the dopamine wore off, I didn't really care about it anymore. And that can lead to like some depression as well because like you just everything you try you fail at, and then you don't practice the things you're good at, and like it's actually through practicing the things I'm good at that actually does boost my
Mm.
mood and boost my energy and make me a little bit happier and more fulfilled. So it's just interesting the different ways people operate. Like some people get really into their routine and then, yeah, trying a new thing, trying novelty is great. But if you're someone more like me, that you're always chasing the novelty, sometimes picking something and being persistently good at that can boost your mood as well.
Is there a difference between what you're good at and what makes you happy or joyful?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But doing the thing that you're good at gives you the boost. So I get that. You're right. I
yeah.
guess I'm totally on board with what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
We should challenge ourselves to try new things and practice those
Yeah.
things, but we should also continue to pay attention to the things we're good at because that also boosts our esteem and makes us feel good as
Mm-hmm.
well.
For some reason, I'm math sticks in my head. But if you don't love math, like don't take calculus courses. Like, like find the things that you do like and become more of an expert at those things. But that again, it's all we're all different. We're all, struggling in some way or another, whether it's with our own emotions or just like the collective hurt in the world. I think we're all, even when we're purposely tuning out of that, which I'll acknowledge my privilege, I have been tuning out of the news right now. But there's still a lot of collective hurt that I think I'm carrying, everyone's carrying. We're all
Yeah.
trying to move forward, but how do you do it wearing like this is such a, meaty metaphor, but like when I get down like this, I feel like I'm wearing a dentist x-ray coat.
Oh,
When you
those
go to the
big, heavy,
dentist,
like
and
lead
they put the thing
things or
on your
whatever.
chest and like
Yeah.
then they take your x-rays. When I start feeling like this, it feels like I'm wearing one of those from like my shoulders to my toes. Like it becomes very difficult to move my limbs. And it doesn't matter how much coffee or water or like trying to move my body, putting on fun music. Like I'll be dancing, but I'll be like slow-mo dancing because like my arms are so heavy when I feel like this. So, yeah.
I think the interesting thing though is that slow-mo dancing's fine too.
Yeah. But it's I guess it's because like I can feel it being forced. It's not like, ooh, I'm dancing slow-mo because it's fun. It's like I can feel in my body that I want to like pump up the beat, and like do like, raise the roof, do all the things. Like I'm emptying the dishwasher and I'm kicking the dishwasher closed and I'm doing all those cool, fun things. But when I feel like this, even if I try to tap into that energy, it just doesn't work. Like I go to kick the dishwasher closed and I like twist my ankle.
It's so interesting. This is why I practice letting go. And again, this is
Mhm.
why, I mean, this podcast is a form of letting go, right? Talking about
Oh
what we
yeah.
regret or talking about how we're feeling. Okay, two things. One is I feel heavier in my body this time of year too. So I totally relate to that. That's part of
Mhm.
my seasonal affective disorder. Like I just feel like, I don't know, achier in my joints sometimes, or I really relate to what you're saying, just heavier. I don't feel as light and free. I feel heavy.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying I feel fat. Like I'm
No,
saying, like
yeah, yeah.
it's just
Oh,
like
yeah.
heaviness. I really, really believe this and know it. Like science tells us this too, but I mean, this is a
Mhm.
little bit witchy and a little bit sciencey, but the brain is always connected to the body. We know this. There's no
Mhm.
disconnection. And when you feel heavy in your body, that is a sign that you're probably feeling heavy in your emotions or in your
Mhm.
spirit or in your soul. It's also heavier energy feels heavier. The emotions on the lower end of the spectrum, I don't like to say positive or negative,
Mm-hmm.
they are actually heavier energy waves. Like they're big
Mm-hmm.
energy waves, like big mountains versus light, happier emotions on the other end of the spectrum are little tiny energy waves, which is like light and
Mm-hmm.
flitting, basically. And that's always a sign for me too when I feel heavy in my body to be like, what's going on for me?
Mm-hmm.
And you're already totally making that connection. Like that's what you're saying to you. Like I feel down and my body feels heavy. And
Mm-hmm.
these are the things we want to talk about here too, because maybe somebody out there is having an aha moment saying, oh, I've never
Mm-hmm.
made that connection between my body and what's going on for me and my brain chemistry or my brain or my emotions or my mood. But that's exactly it. Like I
Mm-hmm.
twisted my ankle or I'm walking into the door frame or the coffee table. It's always like, ugh, something's
Yeah.
off for me that I need to pay attention to that actually has nothing to do with my body.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do
Mm-hmm.
with like my inner voice, how I feel about myself, my confidence, my mood, my emotions. Maybe it's I need to be intellectually stimulated. I don't know, but it's
Mm-hmm.
always a good reminder when those things happen, which sounds kind of weird, but like it's when you twist your
Mm.
ankle, but to take some time for yourself and process.
Yeah. And I also actually curious about your feedback on a specific thing where like, okay, so 2 or 3 days ago, I woke up and I had started my period, so I was in a lot of pain. So I had like the hot water bottle going, I had Gertie on my lap, I had taken the Advil, I'm hanging out, and I can see that it's actually a pretty sunny day out, and it's about 10 degrees Celsius. And I keep saying to myself, okay, in half an hour, I'm going to go out and actually enjoy this sunshine, and that will make me feel better. And then half an hour goes by, my little alarm goes off, and I'm like, okay, another half hour. And then like I try to sneak out at like 4 o'clock, but then like by the time I get my coat on and Gertie's coat on and we get outside, like it's pretty much nighttime.
Yeah.
So then I end up spending the evening like beating myself up for not taking advantage of the sunny day.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
what?
totally doing those things too right
Yeah.
now. And I think that's also what makes it difficult and hard. Again, we don't have that much sunlight. Like in the
Mm-hmm.
summertime, we'd have sunlight till 9. So getting out at 4 o'clock is great.
Yeah.
And so we actually have to try to change our habits in the winter, but we also have to be kind to ourselves when we're changing our habits. And I
Right.
think that's a real in the thread of society, we are expected or we expect it of ourselves, or there's, commercial advertising or whatever about changing your habits, especially around diet and fitness and those sorts of things,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that this is part of toxic positivity. I just changed my habit and my life became great.
Yeah.
But it's
Right.
really hard to change a habit. And we should acknowledge that it takes work and we should be proud of ourselves when we actually do it. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't just do it like that. Or maybe some people can, but
Yeah.
you have to process things and you have to, the thing that needs to happen, the piece that's missing. I think a lot of programs out there or messaging out there is perpetuating that being unkind to ourselves when we're doing the bad habit
Mm-hmm.
or punishing ourselves or expecting ourselves to change right away.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to acknowledge that there's always moments of transition, moments of processing, moments of doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, you're not going to just immediately change. And,
Right.
um, but we get mad at ourselves and we judge ourselves and we're unkind to ourselves. And it starts with you. Kindness starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be kind to ourselves first and then kind to
Mm-hmm.
others.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with you. And then if you're kind, for example, if you're kind to yourself and you don't judge yourself and you give yourself the benefit of the doubt, it's easier for you to be kind to another person and give the other person the benefit of the doubt because you're already
Mm-hmm.
practicing that or doing that with yourself.
Right.
And that's a big tangent, but
No, I liked it. And I find it flipped for me. Like I find it way easier to be nicer to somebody else or give us a stranger the benefit of the doubt over myself. Um, because like even if we keep this same example in mind, like every time I was like, oh, I want to go out, I set the alarm for half an hour, and then every half hour when that alarm went out, I was like, oh, I need to get dressed, I need to do this, I need to do that. But like if I saw someone outside wearing like, sweatpants and their hair all messy. Like I wouldn't have cared, but like still I didn't want to go outside without getting ready. So I put all these barriers in front of myself to even like go out and enjoy the sunny day.
I can speak from like my experience too, or
Sure.
here's something I've been doing. The smallest possible chunks. That sounds
Okay.
weird. I know I'm supposed to look at my light therapy lamp for half an hour every
Right.
morning, but I've been doing it for 5 minutes.
Hmm.
Or when I feel like I can't do something, it's like, okay, I know I want to get outside and get in the sun. I'm just going to step outside my front door for 5 minutes. That's it.
Right.
But
Hmm.
take it down to the smallest
Right.
degree. Any movement's better than no movement, and or any sunlight's better than no sunlight.
Hmm.
Any healthy, nutrient dense nutrition food is better than no nutritious food.
Hmm.
So if I'm going to eat some chocolate, I'm also like, I started my day with an egg, and
Right.
that counts for something.
Yeah, for
That
sure.
counts for something. But like, I hear you. And also, like, I'm pushing myself, as I say, I'm fighting. I'm fighting right now in a good way.
Right.
But I know what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for
Mm.
me. I'm fighting for me to be a functional human being in the winter. And I'm fighting to set myself up now to do that. So
Right.
maybe figure out what you're fighting for and remind yourself what you're fighting for too.
Mm. That's a good reminder. I think it's funny that you would even mention like being a functional human being in the winter because December's coming up. Obviously, that's the month after November. And it's my birthday month, and it's a month of so much travel and so many obligations and so many other people's expectations that they pretend aren't expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, oh, just come, we don't care what day it is, and stuff like that. And that's beautiful in sentiment, but in practice, it never really works out. So I've already spent a good 5 to 7 hours trying to plan out my December holiday travel plans. And like we've already mentioned in this episode, it's only November 17th. And on top of spending all that time, I'm no further ahead. I keep like I still haven't confirmed like are we going to be in Sudbury for this part? Are we going to go to Kingston for that part? Are we going to be home for this part? How do we make sure we're not in our apartment on New Year's Eve because Gertie can't handle the fireworks? Well, anywhere else we go, there's going to be fireworks. So now I got to consider that. Like just this spiral of activity in my brain that isn't settled. So I'm certain that part of my shutdown right now is that there's all this energy that really needs my attention that I can't really sort out yet. It's causing my brain to shut down. Like and it infiltrates all these other areas of my life, even though it's still like more than a month away.
Yeah. That sounds like overwhelm to me.
Hmm.
It makes me feel overwhelmed.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
No,
just
no,
like
no,
dump
not at
all that,
all.
but
No,
like,
this is what
yeah.
friends are for. I'm here to listen. But I'm saying I feel
Hmm.
the overwhelm for you. Like,
Yeah,
and again, what are the simplest things? Have you ever done the so that exercise?
I don't think so. That.
Yeah. So a lot of people, I mean, I already just said it. What's your why? Like, what am I fighting for? I'm fighting for me.
Hmm.
But then go down another level. I'm fighting for me so that, and then go again, so that, and keep answering the question. Do it like 6, 7, or 8
Hmm.
times. And then you'll come down to your real why or the real reason. And it
Hmm.
can almost ground you and help you find your intention and
Right.
help you get rid of all these things. And the other thing is maybe the intention you thought was to make other people happy, but you realize in doing that, you realize what it is that you need to make you happy.
Yeah, for me, because I don't get to see my family very often, like once or twice a year, really. It's like a guilt lessening. Like if I see everyone at Christmas, at least I can not feel bad that I only saw them twice a year. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's what it really comes down to is that like it's not necessarily that I want to make everyone happy, it's just that I want to avoid the guilt. or release some of the guilt I feel that has been building up since the summer.
Who makes you feel guilty?
Myself, like no one really tries to make me feel guilty, but I just do because like as much as I love my life that I've created here in Toronto, like part of me does feel like so many things would be easier if I didn't live in Toronto. And it's like, but easier for
Is
who?
easier happier, or is easier just easier?
Well, and it's not even that it would be easier for me. It would definitely be harder for me to live back in my hometown or near my husband's hometown. It would be way harder for me than living in Toronto currently is. Um, but at the same time, like this ongoing pang of guilt that never really goes away. It only like even when I do go see people, it's like the second we're leaving, it like it never fully goes away. It goes down a little, like the gauge goes down a little, but then it only takes a couple weeks after visiting where it like kind of comes back up
Does
again.
something trigger you to make you feel guilty, or are you really just doing it to yourself? Like a couple
I
weeks later,
mean,
does something trigger you to make you feel guilty?
like, something bad happens in either city and we're not there to help
Hmm.
deal with the fallout.
That's a tough one.
Mm. And I'm certain it's part of why I'm already feeling like just so heavy. Like, is and again, I remember like being a kid and like my dad was a bit of a bah humbug around the holidays. He'd always say, I hate the holidays, I hate this time of year. And like, I always be like, ew, like, relax, old man. Like, I remember like thinking that as a kid. But in the last like 2 weeks, I've said it out loud at least 5 times. And I go, wow, I am my father's daughter. How wonderful.
I think that's what a lot of families do.
Hmm.
I think there's this pressure at the holidays to come together and pretend you're a perfect family and have the
Hmm.
perfect family dinner and the perfect family gathering. And if you're not doing that on the regular or easily already, why are we pretending during the holidays?
Yeah, I don't actually think there's a pressure to be perfect. I think it's just a pressure to show up. And it's not that, and right now, showing up does take a lot out of both of us. And there's a lot of logistics and like it's just a lot. That's all. And like, but I mean, other people do a lot for us. So like you kind of have to, everyone has to kind of pitch in.
Does everyone have to pitch in?
I think so.
Do you
Like
think you pitch in more than others?
no,
Okay.
definitely not.
Okay.
I don't think I pitch in more. And I think that's even why like I get even further down about this stuff. Like, why is all I have to do is show up? And even that I'm finding challenging. Yeah.
That's really hard to deal with.
Yeah.
I also
It's
think we're
okay.
playing the what if game right now.
Mm-hmm.
And let me ask you something. Is this a regular pattern this time to play the what if game, especially around the holidays? Like if I change my pattern and I ask somebody to do something, this is the worst thing that could happen.
No, because I feel like again, it's the pressure is just on us to show up so that everyone feels a little bit lighter. Everyone feels a bit happier because like me and Ben are a fun time. We make lots of jokes. We're like, so that's all people want. Like the people just want us to show up, which is nice, but it's still a bit of a pressure.
So you feel pressure to make everybody feel light and joyful, even though you're not
Yeah.
feeling light and joyful.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you feel like they
But
won't
that's not just the holidays, that's year round, Vic.
but do you feel like they won't accept you if you're not light and joyful? Like you hide this part of you from them?
It's not about the lack of acceptance, it's about the fact that they all already have a lot on their plate. If I'm something that they don't have to worry about, that's better.
Maybe they want to worry about you because they love you,
Mhm. Yeah.
which is hard. Like I really struggle with that too. Like how to
Hmm.
say no and how to say like this is what I want to do this year. And then again, it comes
Yeah.
back to like intention. Like
Hmm.
we get pulled into these things so easily that we lose our grounding or lose our intention.
Yeah,
And
for
when
sure.
this happens for me at Christmas time, I need to remind myself what's my intention. Like last year, for example, my nephew was here from Australia. And every day, the only thing was like, My intention is to spend as much time with
Right.
Sebastian. That's my intention. And I had to remind myself that when, you know, there were family arguments or tension, I was like, it's okay. I'm here for Sebastian. Like that's I want to spend as many minutes, hours, days with him as possible because I only get to see him every 2 to 3 years. Yeah, we get sucked away from our grounding, our intention so easily, just in life in general, and especially bringing it back to what's going on in life, like the darkness or whatever. It's more important now than ever at this time of year for both of us. I'm speaking to myself right now to remember what my intention is, what my basic intention is, or my basic thing that will ground me. Getting sun in my eyeballs every day.
Yeah.
Working on my recreo.health, working on the podcast, not in these orders.
Yeah.
Nurturing my relationship with Christian, looking after Olivia the cat, looking after my physical, emotional, and brain health. That's it.
Right.
And then after all that, caring for others.
Right.
It's so easy to get sucked into drama or sucked into heavy energy. It's so easy to get sucked into heavy energy. It's hard. What we were going to talk about today, which is what we just kind of did, is
speaking of intention. Yeah.
We wanted to talk about the formula that we use in the podcast, because our intention when we designed the podcast was to show a formula of a way that you can talk with your friends or family or whoever it is you're talking to through the heavier times or even through the lighter times, right? So let's be really clear about what the formula is for the podcast. You probably already know what it is out there listening, right? We start with the check-in. Why do we do that? We do it to connect to each other and understand where we're at in this moment, in this day. I'm coming in to do a recording with Shadow. I want to know where her energy's at. I want her to know where my energy's at. You're going out for a cup of tea with a friend. First thing you do, check in, scale of 1 to 10. What's your mood like? I mean, you don't have to call the check-in. You can call whatever you want, but I want to know where you're at so that I can meet you where you're at, because I care about you and I want to be with you through this cup of tea we're having, through whatever. But I also want you to hear me and know where I'm at. So we check in. I mean, we do it really methodically. We check in and say, how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? It could be, what's your mood? It could be thumbs up, thumbs down. It could be, are you feeling thumbs up? Are you feeling thumbs down? Are you feeling come see, come saw, whatever it is. So we always do that.
I was just going to say, and it's important, listener, if you are practicing this at like a cup of tea with a friend, try, like it's so easy to follow our scripts, right? Of, hi, how are you? I'm good. How are you? Oh, I'm good. We've conditioned ourselves that that's every single greeting. And like, okay, so get through that part of the greeting, then immediately go into your check-in, because I don't know, like you have to almost disrupt that script in order to find out how someone's really feeling, because we all put on this mask, I think.
Yeah, I find myself, I mean, I still do it. I had a phone meeting with my psychiatrist the other day. He's like, how are you? I'm like, I'm fine. He's like, okay. And I was like, I don't know why I just fucking said that.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's like he's like, I know, Victoria. So it's like, I'm actually not fine. And that's why we're having this conversation, you know?
Exactly.
Like, I don't know why I said that. Right. But
yeah.
In an effort to try and keep it light without dumping each other's heavy energy on each other.
Totally.
As well. Right? Because there should be heaviness and lightness in every not every, I mean, some interactions are all lightness, which is great.
Yeah.
But if an interaction is going to be all heaviness, how can we put a little bit of lightness in there too? So we have a little bit of diversity and, you know, being able to connect with each other. Because it can be hard if you're both feeling really heavy or one person's feeling heavy than the other. That's why we do cause for applause. Tell me something good. And maybe if you're having a cup of tea with a friend, it's the other way around. Because when you do the check-in, you want to get into the heavy, deeper stuff. Or the deeper stuff. Because deeper stuff doesn't necessarily have to feel heavy. So maybe you want to do it the other way around. Maybe you want to do cause for applause first and then check-in. I mean, you could do it the other way around too. So tell me something good that's happened this week. Or I have something
Yeah.
awesome to share. Do you have anything awesome to share? And then the check-in. It could be either the order could be the other way around, whatever feels more
Yeah.
comfortable and natural for you.
Yeah, my husband and I have like a monthly check-in about everything we're working on kind of thing. And cause for applause is one of our agenda items because it can be awkward to discuss that kind of stuff. You don't want your relationship to feel like work. You want it to feel like, again, light and fun and whatever. So to actually sit down every month and be like, okay, well, this is what I'm thinking, and I hope you're on the same page. And then you find out you're not on the same page. Oh,
Now we
okay.
have to have a conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, so we have these check-ins every month, and I do feel it if we skip a month. If we skip a month, I can feel that our connection isn't as strong. But always starting with a cause for applause during those check-ins has been a game changer
Yeah,
for
like
sure.
what are we doing well as a couple? What have we
Totally.
done together that was fun? We went to that concert together or whatever it is, just
Yeah.
acknowledging that you've had time together, you've done something together, you've worked well together. Can
Yeah,
be a
and
good
sometimes it's like a
start.
boring thing too.
Yeah.
Like in the summer, Gertie was scooting a lot, and we did all the stuff. Like we brought her to the vet. We did, like checked everything about why she might be scooting. And it wasn't until like a couple weeks later that we noticed because she's such a furry little dog. Like she actually had a dry spot on the base of her tail. So it had nothing to do with her pooping or her digestion or anything else. She didn't have any kind of worms. She was trying to scratch her dry skin.
Oh,
But all we saw was scooting. So we were like, oh
what's
no, she's
scooting? I don't know what
scooting.
scooting is.
Oh, when dogs like drag their butt on the
Oh, okay,
ground.
okay, okay.
And usually it's like a sign of worms or that their anal sac is too full or like all kinds of other things it can be. But we got all those things checked and it was still happening. So we thought it was maybe like an attention seeking behavior. But yeah, she was seeking relief for her itchy tail. So we bought like a hot spot balm for it and it cleared it up right away. But,
Yeah, so like your cause
like
for applause is that you problem solved together.
yeah, well, and that like we figured it out
Yeah.
because like it had been bothering us for a while.
Yeah.
Like why is our poor dog doing this?
Yeah, like
Uh,
celebrating the small stuff or celebrating the ordinary things that we do, or even
yeah,
celebrating the chores that we do, or the
totally.
responsibilities, like following through on a responsibility to look after your
Yeah.
dog. We should be celebrating those things because if we
Hmm.
just ignore them, we're also not teaching ourselves to acknowledge that we're working hard every day at being a human being. And we should
Hmm.
acknowledge the work that we're always doing because often what we do is we blame ourselves, we guilt ourselves, we judge ourselves, and
Right.
we don't acknowledge the everyday, ordinary work that we're doing as a human being. And that counts.
Totally.
That counts towards
Hmm.
functioning as a human being.
Yeah.
Then we share. We
Yeah.
share our regrets. All right. We all know that's what we do here. We share our regrets. But what happens after
Yeah.
the regrets is we always ask, do you want feedback or do you want to be heard? Now, here's a lesson that I've learned having guests is we may need to reword that because we know what that means. But sometimes guests are like,
Right.
so maybe when you're talking to your friends, it's like, do you want my advice or did you just want to vent?
Mm.
Do you want my advice or did you just want me to hear your story? Right? Like there's
Yeah.
other ways of putting it, but we know what do you want feedback or do you want to be heard means. But that's really what we're getting at because
Yeah.
sometimes you just want to vent or tell a friend a story,
Hmm.
or maybe it's not venting. You're really excited about something cool that happened and you
Yeah.
just want to tell a friend a story. You don't need their advice on it. You just want them to be like, that's amazing. Good for
Hmm.
you. Or you want them to be like, that's really hard. That sucks. I'm here with you.
Hmm.
And other times you actually want advice from your friends
Right.
or your family or your therapist or whoever it is you're talking to. Right. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, yeah, one of my lessons learned is other ways that we can say, do you want feedback or do you want to be heard? But I
Yeah.
do think that's one of the most important things that we're demonstrating here. And I think that if listeners out there can take that into their everyday conversations, it's
Hmm.
incredibly helpful
Yeah.
because sometimes we don't want unsolicited advice.
Yes. Yes.
And we have to, and
Um,
as the advice giver, we have to be okay to not give the advice too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's tough. That's like one of the tougher parts. And even though we practice this on this podcast, like I still find myself kind of tripping into that
Do you
sometimes.
find yourself knowing when you're doing it more though and saying,
Oh yeah,
and then,
I do catch myself and I go, oh my gosh, I'm sorry you didn't even ask, or
yeah,
and then usually the person's really gracious about it and says, oh no, I'm interested, or I have to also catch myself because sometimes I'll ask like, do you want my take or do you want advice? And I must look at them with like those like puppy dog eyes, like, let me talk.
yeah,
Like, what if they're just saying yes to placate me as opposed to honoring what they really wanted, right?
yeah.
So I have to make sure I'm asking that question in a more them focused way.
I like using the words no pressure sometimes too, especially over text.
Mm,
It's like, would you like my advice? No pressure. Like it's okay if you don't,
right.
it's okay if you don't want it. Like trying to say, like, it's okay, whatever you decide, like trying to give people space
Yeah.
and permission, whatever they decide, and then I'm not going to be mad at them or judge them. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So then we do feedback or be heard. I mean, often we want feedback because we're here, but and there's some episodes
Yeah.
where we just say, nope, I just wanted to tell my story, and that's fine too. And that's
Yeah.
about, again, that's about your voice and acknowledging that you deserve to be heard. So sometimes just telling a
Mm,
story and then saying, I just wanted to be heard can be really good for your self confidence and how you feel about yourself, because what you're telling your brain and what you're telling yourself is, my story deserves to be heard. And I just said it and it's out there, and that's all I need.
mm, yeah.
We're building our own like self confidence in the podcast too, but we're
Yeah,
also
for
trying to
sure.
demonstrate to those out there that these are ways that we can have connected conversations and learn from each other versus conversations where it's just two people trying to prove their point without listening to the other side.
Yeah.
We're really proud of the formula. We didn't invent it. It comes from something called reflective listening. The other part of reflective listening is if you feel like you're not being heard by the other person. We haven't really demonstrated this on the podcast, but the other piece of
Mm-hmm.
it is repeating back to the person exactly what they just said to you and saying, is that correct? So, what I just
Right.
heard you say is blah, 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 blah. Did I
Mm-hmm.
interpret that the right way?
Right.
Giving them space to correct you if they need you, because you're demonstrating that you really do want to understand. And also, when you say it
Mm-hmm.
out loud, something clicks in your brain because you have to verbalize what you heard. So you're actually verbalizing your understanding of it.
Right.
So that's like the last piece of that. And then of course we always end with our three breaths. And those three breaths, they're
Mm-hmm.
different each season, but they're about, really ultimately, they're about being kind to yourself and
Mm-hmm.
bringing yourself back to the base of your intentions, or the base of you. Breathing is the base of your human experience. Breathing is life. And then we add some words, some sentences, some intentions onto those breaths. But those three breaths are a really great worry reducer, anxiety reliever, stress reliever, overwhelm reliever, a really great tool that you can use any time of your day, first thing in the morning, last thing at
Mm-hmm.
night, during the day when you feel overwhelmed. You don't have to feel overwhelmed to do them. Maybe you just do the breaths first thing in the morning to set your day up. But we try to do three different breaths each season to give, so in hopes that
Mm-hmm.
you connect with one of the formulas of the three breaths, and maybe you incorporate that into your life. And it's a very useful tool, useful to use with kids, useful to use with yourself. But ultimately, my message to myself and to others in the breaths from this season that we're still in, even though this is a little interim episode for our 1 year anniversary, is you're valuable just by being a human being on the face of the planet. And I do think that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be my theme of reminding myself as I move into the winter months, because I can feel that this winter right now with the lack of darkness is affecting me. And I want to try to transition so that I have a better winter, or I have a good winter, and I don't fall into the seasonal affective disorder. And
Mm-hmm.
you are valuable just by being a human being on the face of the planet, because you exist. Because do you know how hard it is to come into existence, whether you believe it through science or you believe it through spirit or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm.
You came into existence, which means you're worthy and valuable. And that's what I tell myself every day. And if I have
Yeah.
a day where I can't get out into the sunlight, that's okay. I don't need to judge myself for that. I'm still valuable, even though I pressed snooze 5 times and I had a cozy hibernating day inside. I'm still valuable. I'm still a
Mm-hmm.
worthy person. I still
Mm-hmm.
matter.
Can I add one thing about the breaths?
Yeah.
So I really like what you said about like practicing it just in your daily life because again, earlier this week when I was feeling really overwhelmed, I was crying a lot and trying to do the like not trying to, I was breathing and I was breathing through the tears like and
Mm.
then I was making myself laugh because I could like literally like breathe but also like the tears were still flowing and then that would make me laugh because like both things were happening and I was reminded that some people only use these techniques when they are already kind of like feeling that way. They
Mm.
don't practice it when they're feeling good. So then they create this neural pathway about like, well, I only deep breathe when things are going bad. So then when you go to deep breathe when things are bad, you're like self-fulfilling
Oh,
that in your
interesting.
brain.
So you're connecting the deep breathing to something bad. So if you deep breathe when something bad isn't happening, your brain might relate it to something bad.
No, not that I'm saying we need to practice all of these things even when we're feeling good.
Yeah.
Like, like with meditation too. Like I try to meditate even on the days that I don't feel I need it, so that on the days I do need it, it is a practice and not like another layer of like, oh man, I need to meditate, but I don't even know how, or
Hmm.
those kinds of things. So practicing those things even when you're feeling good helps when those times are not feeling so good, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So, I run a live Zoom visualization meditation class, and sometimes you come to give and sometimes you come to get when you come to class or when you come into
Right.
community, right? And I think that kind of goes along with what you're saying. I
Hmm.
always do a check-in in the chat box at the beginning of the class, exact same thing. I ask everybody how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10 coming into today's class, or give me an emoji in the chat box or just a thumbs
Hmm.
up, but just write something in the chat box about how you're feeling. And sometimes people come into the class and they're feeling 9 out of 10. And
Right.
they're coming to the letting go of worry class, worry meditation.
Hmm.
But they're coming in to give their energy to others and support the group just by being there, right? I lead the
Oh yeah.
class. There's a little bit of a discussion at the beginning. I give maybe a little lecture and a little bit of discussion. And then but just by being there when you're a 9 out of 10, you're coming to support the group. So you're coming to give, but you're also
Hmm.
coming to make it a practice. Like what you're saying is
Yeah.
you're a 9 out of 10 and you come when you're a 5 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10.
Hmm.
Make it a habit or a practice. And that's the really beautiful thing. So I think we're both saying the same things. I say it
Right.
like you come to give or you come to get, or you come to receive, or you come to give or you come to receive. It's important to do both. And it's important to show up
Hmm.
for yourself and others when you're feeling 9 or 10 out of 10 to those meditation habits or breathing habits. And important to show up when you're feeling like a 2 or 3 or 4 out of 10 too.
Hmm.
You always have something to give, and we should always be open to receive goodness too.
Hmm.
So yeah, thanks for that reminder, Shadow. I wasn't thinking about that
Hmm.
either. That's good.
Yeah, it's something that like it because it happened to me this very week, it was top of mind.
Yeah. So that's our 1 year anniversary, everyone.
Hooray!
We've had many other celebration episodes, but we
Mhm.
just wanted to make sure that we weren't getting into a space of toxic positivity and expectations
Mm.
and pressuring ourselves to always put on a show for you, because we always want to be real and vulnerable with you and
Mhm.
be in the process together and on the journey together of relieving regret, of finding tools and resources that work, and ultimately sharing our stories so we don't feel alone in regret, in guilt, in embarrassment, and that we also don't feel alone in joy and sharing causes for applauses and
Mhm.
acknowledging the everyday extraordinary things, because everyday things can be extraordinary, and celebrating each other as human beings.
Mhm.
You want to add anything?
Oh, no, I think you summed it up beautifully, and I think if you could lead us into our three breaths, I think that would be a beautiful ending for today.
So, thank you everybody for being on the journey with us. There is plenty more to come, plenty of guests to come. Always check the show notes. We put links in there for resources for you and special nuggets in there too. So, always check those, because we want to be supporting you and providing you with more in your listening experience and more supports beyond your listening experience. And let's do our 3 breaths together as one of those tools that we're teaching each other. So come on to the front edge of your seat, everybody. Put your feet flat on the floor. And I really want you to press your feet into the floor. Sink into that point of contact with the earth. And know that that point of contact with the earth is the earth supporting you. Gravity will never let you fly away. That means the earth is always holding you in the palm of its hand and supporting you because you matter. The earth wants you to be here. Nature wants you to be here. Community wants you to be here. You matter just because you're a human being. So let your feet sink into the floor. Let the earth hold you in the palm of its hand. Shrug your shoulders up and down, taking a big breath in and a big breath out, saying release, 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 release. Release any tension, any of those little thoughts that are overwhelming. Just let them go right now in this moment, just for this moment. This moment's the only thing that matters. Acknowledging that breath is the foundation of life. When you breathe, you live, and you deserve it. Taking another big breath in, another big breath out, saying to yourself, I have everything I need because I can breathe and I have breath. Taking one last breath in, just enjoying this moment before you move forward with your day, staying in this moment with yourself, with kindness to yourself, taking a big breath in, big breath out. I've done everything I can do today up until this moment, and that's okay. And I am valuable just by being a human being on the face of this earth. I matter because I am here in this moment right now. Thank you so much for joining us with this important conversation about transitioning into the winter, how we feel, allowing Shadow and I to be vulnerable and showing you that we're not perfect people and that we deserve love from you and to each other, even in the heavier times. So thank you for your love. Thank you for being here with us. And we look forward to being with you on the next episode. We'll see you then, everybody. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Hey there, it's Victoria here. Just wanted to pop in quickly before our closing credits to acknowledge that today might have been a little different to listen to, and that's okay. And maybe you learned something from Shadow and I being maybe a little bit more honest and vulnerable today. And maybe it got you thinking, I'd really like to start exploring more personal growth, more mindfulness, or really be able to connect to more women like Shadow and myself who are on a journey of learning together. And so I'd like to invite you, listener, and to offer you support by giving you 1 month free membership to the myrecreo.health platform. I talk about it a lot on the podcast. This is where I run my Friday mindfulness classes, the letting go of worry class, brain fitness classes, movement classes, and also have spaces for discussion, motivation, strategies, tools, and much more. So if you're interested in trying it out and you think maybe it's time, or there's a voice deep down inside saying maybe it's time and I want to reach out and do a little bit more learning, come and join us in our community at myrecreo.health. all you have to do to get 1 month free to try out this resource and see if it's right for you, go to myrecreohealth.myflowdesk.com/free month. That's myrecreohealth, myrecreohealth.myflowdesk, myflowdesk.com/free month.
This episode of Let's Relieve Regret was produced by Shadow Ball and Victoria Mir-Bercia. We are an independent podcast supported by you, our listeners.
You can become a supporter by donating $3, $5, or even $8 per month at www.letsrelieveregretpodcast.buzzsprout.com and click on the support button. You can find the link in the show notes.
Our goal is to empower as many women as possible to overcome the shame and guilt that accompanies regret.
If this podcast helped you have an aha moment, help us spread the word. It's free for you, and it means the world to us.
Please follow us on Instagram at relieve.regret.
Tell 2 friends.
Or leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Find all this information and more in the show notes. Okay,
Bye!
bye!